Hello, everyone, and welcome to another movie review. I am happy that you can join me today. So, this past weekend, I was able to catch up on some movies, including A Complete Unknown. This is one of the movies that were released in theaters on Christmas that I finally got a chance to watch. It was directed by James Mangold. It stars Timothy Chalamet, Edward Norton, and Elle Fanning. It is based on the biography Dylan Goes Electric by Elijah Wald, and it tells the story of the beginning of Bob Dylan's music career. The running time is 2 hours 10 minutes. I have not shared this online, so I might as well share it now. I wanted to see this film because one of my brothers told me he was working on his first album, and I asked him if he would mind me writing a song for him. And he was excited that I wanted to do that. And then we had a convo via text where I asked him what his musical influences are, and one of the singers he mentioned was Bob Dylan. So I started listening to Bob Dylan's songs. I read his biography, and I started getting an idea for a song after visiting an exhibit back in June. So when I saw the trailer back in September, October, and I learned they made a movie about Dylan, I thought this is perfect timing. So I wanted to see this film, listen to more Bob Dylan so I can get back to my songwriting. And I was really surprised to learn about the relationship between Dylan and Woody Guthrie. So that's where the movie starts. He moved to New York City from the Midwest to make it as a musician, and he finds Woody Guthrie, who is his idol, and he is staying at a hospice because he suffers from Huntington's disease. Dylan wrote a song about Guthrie and he sings it for him, and they became friends. Now, the movie starts in 1961 when Dylan is 19, and it ends in 1965. Guthrie died in 1967, so he appears every now and then in the movie. This time period took place long before I was born, but I know who Woody Guthrie is because he is one of his famous songs is This Land Is Your Land, and I had to memorize that song when I was a kid in elementary school. So to learn that Guthrie was one of Dylan's idols was a pleasant surprise to me, and while watching the film I thought this is something I can use in my songwriting. So the movie takes you on a journey from Dylan making a name for himself in the folk indie circuit to getting a record deal to recording his first album and the problems that arise when he becomes famous and when he decides to reinvent his sound by using electric guitars. Timothy Chalamet plays the young Bob Dylan. Edward Norton plays Pete Seeger, another folk singer and friend of Woody Guthrie. Elle Fanning plays Bob's girlfriend Sylvie, and you see the journey of their relationship. At the same time, Bob was also involved with another folk singer, Joan Baez. At the time, she was the face of folk music. She was popular back in the day, but I personally did not know who she was until I watched this film. But Bob and Joan's relationship was a rocky one. The music is what brought them together. But Dylan's artistic evolution is part of the reason they cut ties with each other. So, I am going to give this film 4 out of 5 stars. James Mangold does a solid job at transporting the audience back in time to the early 1960s. And as a writer, I did appreciate the brief moments where you see Bob working on songs and where he got the ideas from. I also appreciate that you see Bob's character flaws, which leads to 2 points that I want to make. Number one, this movie does not work without Chalamet. He did a great job getting into character and bringing Bob Dylan to life, and I would like to see him get another Oscar nomination for this film. I think he deserves it. Number two, And this has to do with Bob Dylan portrayed in the film. I am not sure how much of the portrayal is fictional or accurate, but when I left the theater, my first thought was a quote I read online, which was, "Talent hits the mark no one can hit. Genius hits the mark no one can see." And at first, I did not fully comprehend that quote. And this film gave me the aha moment I was looking for. Sometimes I feel that the word genius gets overused. So when it comes to that word, I always ask myself, is this person truly a genius and why? The young Bob Dylan in the movie is smart. He is really good at writing lyrics and coming up with memorable melodies. He is arrogant and eccentric, but just because a person is arrogant, eccentric, and smart does not mean they are a genius. This movie tries to make Bob Dylan out to be a genius, but I am not buying it. He is just a talented man, in my opinion, who dedicated his life to music, and his goal was to not be boring, which he does say to Sylvie in the movie. But because he meets people who see him as a genius, he gets away with rude behavior. He has a habit of being late. He cheats on Sylvie with Joan. He behaves like a jerk towards Joan. And when he performs at a folk festival in 1965, instead of singing music the audience wants to hear, he decides to perform his new music after adding the electric guitar sound, because that is what he wants to perform. And this is when I am no longer rooting for Bob, because I am thinking, how many people in this world get to do what they love to do for a living? So why not do the professional thing and perform the songs people want to hear? And whatever you want to perform, you can hit the road and go on tour. I understand that when Bob Dylan changes his sound, he is growing and evolving, and I respect that. I think singers need that artistic freedom. In general, artists needs artistic freedom regardless of the art you're focusing on. But what Dylan did at the 1965 Folk Festival is similar to being invited to a gospel fest and you decide to sing something else besides gospel. Instead of singing about Jesus, you decide to sing about a relationship with a girlfriend. That is rude. And then what really ticked me off was the closing credits. They mentioned that Bob Dylan was the only songwriter in history that won the Nobel Prize in Literature because the Nobel Committee wanted to honor him for writing poetic songs over a span of 50, 60 years. And he did not show up to the Nobel Prize ceremony. Again, how many people out there deserve that kind of recognition and they never get it? But here he is with this honor of winning the Nobel Prize, and he's a no-show. Another rude jester. And people forgive him because he is seen as a genius. Well, to me, genius he is not. I enjoy some of his songs. I understand why people are fans of his. And I learned from him from a songwriting perspective. I am glad I saw the film, but I may not watch this movie again. Once may be enough for me. There are movies that I can watch over and over and over again. And then there are some movies out there where I've watched it once, and once was enough. And this movie might be one of those movies. So that is all for today. Thanks for watching as always, and I will see you next time with another movie review. Until then, have fun at the movies.